beginning of my journey. There are two ways to get to Skardu from the rest of Pakistan, and let's take Islamabad as an example. You can either fly or you can take the road. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you take the road, it's gonna be a really long journey, probably about 20 hours, and that is without the possibility of landslides. But along the way, you're gonna get to see some incredible places, including the valleys of Naran and possibly Kahan, as well as Babusar Pass. Babusar Pass is basically a road that goes up to over 4,170 meters. That is really high. And then you'll get to drive along part of the Karakoram Highway, probably the most scenic road in the world. And then at one point you're gonna turn off onto a tiny little road that's not very well maintained. And eventually after about 10 hours you might get to Skardu. I didn't have that much time, so I flew. Here's the thing about the flight. It set me back $200 for a 1-hour flight. And that's all because there is only one airline serving this route, which means they basically have a monopoly. Doesn't matter, ultimately the views out of the window more than made up for it. Lovely. You fly into Skardu among some of the world's most majestic peaks, and you land at what is probably one of the most scenic airports in the world. I am not exaggerating. Our friend Mustafa, that's Mustafa right there, picked us up from the airport in his big 4x4, and that was really the beginning of our Skardu adventure. Nothing could quite prepare me for what I saw next. To be honest with you guys, I expected Skardu to be a little bit like Hunza, but it is not at all like Hunza except for the really crazy massive mountains. In Hunza, you've got the one big road, the Karakoram Highway, that directs all traffic in a singular direction. In Skardu, there is no such road. And the blossom comes late in Skardu as well, much later than in Hunza, which means that we had the place all to ourselves. It was practically empty, which was great, but it did have some drawbacks. For example, some places being literally shut down. So this is the famous Lower Kachura Lake in Skardu. The one that you see in all the pictures, the heart-shaped one with the amazing resort. The resort is closed. You just get on with it and you find alternatives. This is Upper Kachura Lake. But guys, we have a lot to cover and very little time, so I'm gonna whiz through all the other places I saw in Skardu very quickly so that you can decide whether it's worth going there or not. After Upper Kachura Lake, we decided to make our way towards Shigar Fort. On our way to Shigar Fort, out of the corner of my eye, out of the window of the car, I caught a glimpse of a place that looked really quite interesting. So we had to take our 4x4 and drive down this really tiny little dirt track until we got to a place that looked like a pasture in the middle of the mountains, right by a winding blue river. I've always imagined places like this to be oases in the middle of a desert, and right here you got an oasis in the middle of the mountains, surrounded by rock. Inhospitable, inaccessible rock. And yet, here we are. Anyway, from this green pasture, we continued along our way to Shigar Fort. I had seen pictures of Shigar Fort before, but there's a few things that I only found out once I got there. Shigar Fort is a 17th century fort, which is kind of nestled in the middle of the mountains, and its name apparently translates to rock fort, or the fort on the rock. It was recently restored by the Agahan Foundation, and now there is a really lovely boutique hotel in the fort. So yes, guests can actually stay inside the fort, in the fort rooms. Isn't that cool? But it is quite pricey, so not really for most people's budgets. From Shigar Fort, we continued along the way towards Mantoka Waterfall. It was a good couple of hours before we got there because the road is really quite bumpy, and although the drive is really slow, it is oh so scenic.